if you have been following the death and funeral arrangements of the former Kenyan Prime Minister Raila Odinga. You must have by now observed some distinct differences between the coffin that was seen in India and the casket that Kenyans met at the Moi Sports Centre Kasarani during the public body viewing session, and we are going to highlight in this video some of the crucial changes that were made to the body of the celebrated Enigma immediately after landing in the country and prior to that public viewing. First things first, when the body first appeared to the public while in Kerala, India, as preparations for its repatriation had set in, it could be seen having been placed in a simple dark tan wooden coffin like those used by common citizens in Kenya. However, when the body was finally availed to Kenyans for them to view after over 5 hours of rowdiness and chaos that threatened the success of the session, it could be easily noted that the casket had been changed, and this time the fallen giant was resting in a much more luxurious solid wood casket. And to explain what had just happened, we will go straight to the point. The reason why the funeral program stipulated that the body of the former Prime Minister was to be taken to the Lee Funeral Home first upon being repatriated into the country via the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport before being taken to Parliament from public viewing, which was later changed to Kasarani after the situation became apparent that Parliament could not accommodate the rowdy citizens, was for the body to be treated, embalmed and changed. After Raila's death, the Indian government dispatched this simple coffin into which his body was to be ferried around while on Indian soil and repatriated in, but since the Kenyan government had planned to accord him a state funeral because of his stature as a former prime minister and Kenyan statesman, it was planned by Nairobi that everything will be changed immediately after the body's arrival in the country, and this was to be done at the Lee Funeral Home. Unfortunately, the body's arrival at JKIA was punctuated with unimaginable chaos and rowdiness from charged and uncontrollable crowds that stormed nearly every part of the airport and took the body hostage for hours, forcing the funeral committee to make some changes to the funeral program like foregoing the journey to the Lee Funeral Home, Parliament and State House. The body was thus taken straight to the Moi International Sports Centre Kasarani when it became apparent that the things would only get worse if they stuck to the program, and consequently, everything that was to be done from the Lee Funeral Home was done at Kasarani Stadium, and that included properly washing and embalming of the body, changing of the coffin, changing of clothes and changing of perfume. All this was done in a closed room of the Kasarani Stadium's presidential suite by Lee Funeral Home specialists that were forced to travel to the stadium, and where no member of the public was allowed to see it. After that process, the body was released to the public and its security bestowed upon the Kenyan military, and top-ranking dignitaries led by the Kenyan President William Ruto and his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta were then given the opportunity to see the body first. Of course, from preliminary pictures that emerged upon the body being availed to the public, the first thing to be noted was a new luxurious casket in which it was lying. Unlike the simple one in which it had been ferried from India, this new one was a solid wood full couch casket with a feet cover, and appeared to be dark red in color. The casket had been lined in white and placed on a wheeled carriage, and resting on the feet cover was his tan fedora hat. The Kenyan coat of arms were visible inside the lid, and we might say the casket was more of both a half couch and a full couch, since a half couch casket has a lid divided into two sections, allowing the top half to be opened for viewing while the bottom remains closed, just like how it was for him, that is if you put the feet cover into consideration. Again, one would argue that it was a full couch casket because it had a single lid that opens the entire length, and it would have exposed his entire body, had it been missing the feet cover. Anyway, the second thing that could easily be noted, especially by those who went up close to the body, was the fact that his clothes had been changed, with him having been dressed in an elegant black suit, and that he had been draped with an orange satin scarf down his neck, a scarf that paid tribute to him as the Orange Democratic Movement Party founder and leader. And talking of the hat, perhaps you may have noticed that this hat that had been placed on the feet cover of the casket wasn't the same hat that the former Prime Minister's daughter Winnie Odinga had carried from India and handed to her grieving mother at JKIA, even though they were of the same design. Winnie Odinga had carried a cream-white fedora hat with a black ribbon throughout that repatriation process, a hat that Raila had specifically worn on his way to India, but this relatively new fedora hat that was placed on top of the casket at Kasarani was tan in color, with a brown ribbon on it.
Head of Public Service, followed by Cabinet Secretaries. Head of Public Service first.